Hi, I'm Kyle Pennypacker and welcome back to Penny Prepper. Today's video, we're going to be discussing food storage. Before we get started today, I'm going to ask that you like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share with anybody that you think may be interested in this video. Alright, 25 pounds of rice will fit in a 5-gallon bucket. And then for that, you need a rice to water ratio of about 1 to 2. So 5 gallons of rice takes about 10 gallons of water. It doesn't include washing the rice. Alright, so you're going to be asking yourself, well, food I have. Everybody pretty much has food stored at home. So the question that you really need to ask yourself is, how much food do you have? Is it nutritious enough to keep you sustained through any type of an emergency? And then also, will it last long enough? Do you have ramen noodles in your cabinet, or do you actually have cans of food or dehydrated, freeze-dried food that could last up to 30 years and actually sustain yourself into the future? So the ways that you can start by storing food and getting ready to actually get into prepping, this is typically where people start. Starting with your pantry, what you're going to want to do is get a couple cans of whatever soup or hearty food. I know a lot of times people go right for Chef Boyardee, and hey, it's not a bad choice. Tastes good, why not? You also have stuff like Spam, stuff that you can fry up and it doesn't taste too bad. You can get stuff that you can pop in the microwave, but what are you going to do if that option isn't available? The most ideal food for a prepper, if we were able to make one, would be something that you don't need to use water or to prep. You don't need to cook it. You don't need to clean it. You can just pull it out of whatever wrapper it's in and eat it. And it tastes good. And not only does it taste good, but it's nutritious and able to sustain yourself for whatever things that you're going to be doing in this type of scenario. Well, you know what? The world ain't perfect, and we're preppers for that reason. So what you can do, like I said, you can start out by getting canned food. Canned food will typically last about 6 months to 2 years, depending on the food and depending on how well it's preserved. Whenever you get it, make sure that you check for dents, because whenever food is dented, it can actually compromise the can, leave in outside air. That's where you get into stuff like botulism and mold. Start out by actually getting foods that you will eat. So if you don't eat canned tuna, don't buy canned tuna, because whenever that expires, you're going to be left throwing out 50 cans of tuna, and the cats are going to be running around your trash. So once you actually do have a couple cans stored or enough food that you think you'll be able to last for a while, what you can do is get into your own methods of preserving food if you're able to. Again, not everybody has the luxury of going out buying a freeze dryer for a couple $1,000s. Not everybody can get a food dehydrator. Not everybody can buy Mylar bags. I understand that. That's why on Penny Prepper, we go over the lowest option and the best option. The best option, I don't even think I can afford. I'm not going to be spending a couple $1,000s on a freeze dryer. If I could, I would. And then I'd check with my fans and see if anybody wanted any, but obviously we're not there yet. So getting canned food, start out. You can also buy mason jars, stuff like that. You can actually start to can your own foods. Again, a lot of that doesn't really last the longest, but it's still better than a can of Chef Boyardee that should only last a year. All right, we're going to start at the very bottom tier and work our way up here. So we're going to start out by, if you have a freezer or fridge, yeah, that's a great option. I know during the power outage in Puerto Rico, a lot of people, what they would do is they would leave their fridges or their freezers closed for as long as they possibly could, grab out as much as they could, slam it back closed, cook, and then they would try to do it again as soon as they could, get that food out of the way first. Then you also have canned food. Again, lasts about 1 to 2 years. You can have pickled food. Pickled food, depending on what type of food it is and how it was made, can last a decently long time. Next on the list is going to be dehydrated food. That, I would say, is second to last. It's probably the cheapest, best option for penny preppers or anybody who's on a budget that can't afford some fancy machine that will science the crap out of your food. So really all it does is takes, I think, not 90%. It takes a decent amount of the moisture out of it. And then that, again, it preserves a lot of the cell walls and prevents the food from breaking down. Last, you're going to have freeze drying. I know I touched on that before, but really that is the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop, the best option out there. Mountain House, meals like that last 25 to 30 year expiration date. And while I'm on that topic, expiration dates, they're not always absolute. Just because something says that it expires in 2 years doesn't mean that you can't eat it 3, 4, 5 years later. MREs, again, you can get those just because they expire. I think they're only good for 3 years, and then they get inspected, and then they're good for not good for another 3 years, but they're supposed to be okay for another 3 years. I've eaten some pretty questionable MREs, and honestly, I didn't get sick from them. But again, give it the sniff test. If COVID didn't ruin your sense of smell, give it a sniff test. Things like pickled foods, you might not have that luxury. All right, I'm going to try to wrap this up as quick as I can for you guys, because food is not the most entertaining thing in the world to talk about. If you're able to, one of the systems that I have for a bulk, cheap way of storing food, I went on Amazon, I got some Mylar bags. They also came with the oxygen absorbers. And then what I did was I actually got a bunch of rice bags, poured them into the Mylar bags, put the oxygen absorbers in, pushed out as much air as I possibly could, sealed them up, took a hair straightener, sealed that up, and then put that in a 5-gallon bucket. Now, the great thing about that is, first of all, the Mylar bags, no light or air should really be able to get in through them. The oxygen absorber will be taking the oxygen out of the air inside the bag, which will prevent bacteria growth, and if there was any sort of bugs in there, they're going to be dead. And then sealing that in a 5-gallon bucket, marking that. I also put the date on it. That's great because typically you're not going to have a lot of pests that are going to make it through those 5-gallon buckets. If they do, you're going to be able to tell because they're bright orange. All right, so my call to action for this video is going to be go out, buy a 5-gallon bucket or two at Home Depot. Make sure that you get the lid and a big bag of rice. I'll put a link in the description of the Mylar bags that I bought off of Amazon. They were not that expensive, and you can actually get 5-gallon Mylar bags, which is perfect for the 5-gallon buckets. They don't fit perfect, but hey, what are you going to do? Then you can actually make sure that you put that rice in, mark it off with the date, and then start stacking. Not only can you utilize this in a grid down situation, but that food's going to be good for 20 years. So let's say 25 years from now, you're down on your luck a little bit and your money's not buying what it used to. Crack one of those open and grab some Saison, and you got yourself a meal. All right, that's all I have for today's video. If there's anything you would like to see in the upcoming videos, please comment below and let me know. Stay safe and stay prepared.